Welcome.
Thank you.
Very nice to see you. And I have to say, it's interesting watching a conductor watch themselves back. How do you feel about watching your own performance?
Always a strange feeling. Somehow watching yourself is not my favorite pastimes, frankly. But maybe it's nice to see that not so much have changed, and some things look actually better when you have some distance from it.
Does it surprise you when you look at something that was 2016? Is there something that you look at and you think, oh, I didn't expect that?
No, I think the orchestra sounded very nice, and conductor was extremely handsome.
And he hasn't changed.
Luckily.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you're here in Verbier conducting music by another great conductor, actually, tomorrow. Mahler's First Symphony will be on the programme.
True, yes.
Can you tell when you're conducting music written by another conductor? Does it show in the music?
Absolutely. Mahler was the greatest conductor of them all. And in fact, his scores are so meticulously marked that only conductor could truly mark them that way. No scores are as well marked because they are more conceptual. Mahler very practically knowing how the conductor works and what the orchestra needs, marks with extreme care, and very often marks little messages for the conductor. Make sure that this happens here. Make sure we can hear this. This is not a mistake. This is correct. All those little messages for conductors. So he knows the practical side of it. You know.
But you are actually releasing a recording of Mahler's First later this year, correct? So this is something of a passion for you, Mahler.
Mahler is my love. I love it since I was a kid. And now with the Zurich Tonhalle Orchestra, we are in the process of recording all Mahler symphonies, and we have already recorded released the fifth.
Okay.
And now releasing the first soon. So this what you will be hearing tomorrow is a sort of a little preview.
And the love comes from what? When did it start?
I think it probably started in that early childhood when I first heard it on the recordings, and of course I come from a conductor's family. My father is a conductor, my brother is a conductor, my father's brother was a conductor. So a lot of repertoire at a very early age. And Mahler, really unlike any other composer, I would think, it has the inner world that really has just no end. It is, as you get older, you more discover the depth of his inner world and how all of that relates to yourself and to the world around you. So these pieces, they're never ready. They always feel like, oh, there is yet another dimension. There is yet another layer of depth and sometimes humor and sometimes craziness and wildness that he actually requires and writes in with great wildness, and here with an incredible sorrow and introverted moments of great sort of inner look, inner search. So Mahler is sort of never really ready. You always feel like there is yet another dimension.
Are there particular challenges to conducting Mahler? Maybe obstacles you come across that you might not so much in other composers? What are the difficulties?
The difficulty is that it's a language, and it's a language very much like with other composers, but it is so complex, the language, that in order for really to get to the level or the result that you want, it is not enough to have a very good orchestra who sort of plays well. It needs to be a group of people who are your own tribe, so to speak. People who not only understand how to play those notes and these markings on the page, but also who have the same way of thinking, a way of feeling, the certain tradition. This is how we play Mahler. This is how we love to play Mahler. Rather than sort of he writes a piano, so I play a piano. No, it's sometimes Mahler's pianos are loud, and sometimes Mahler's fortes are soft. And many things in between. So it's not unusual for the orchestra to be confused about the markings. He writes pianissimo to a cello solo mit grosse ton. you know what I mean. You know, but of course, anybody who understands and knows Mahler understands the sort of algogic language that is hidden between those messages, and just generally like-minded, close-knit orchestra that you have worked with for many, many years, to whom the language is so much second nature that you are not ever have to really explain the logic of it. And that happens very rarely.
Mm. So it's interesting. So you basically, to really play Mahler the way you want to play it, you have to play it with your orchestra.
Sure.
And how does it work nowadays that the sounds, you know, there's a sort of international sound in orchestras and sort of the sound, the original sounds of orchestras, I mean, the schools, and this is kind of getting a little bit lost. So how do you get back to that?
I think
with an orchestra that is not yours, for example?
The sound is a complicated subject altogether, because the sound belongs to an orchestra, but orchestra develops that sound through involvement with a certain type of music. If you have an old, let's say, Karajan, Furtwängler sound in Berlin Philharmonic, it was always achieved with a Germanic repertoire and the certain principles that went along with that repertoire. When they played Debussy, they also sounded like Brahms, and they also sounded like Brahms when they played Dvorak, for example, which is very different, and Tchaikovsky is yet a different thing. So the sound is very much belonging to a composer. And this idea of the orchestra having a sound is correct, but then this orchestra needs to be connected with a repertoire where that particular sound is required. And in a sort of a cosmopolitan world, that is very hard to achieve. If you have an orchestra, maybe the only orchestra in the world who still retains its own sound is Czech Philharmonic, because they are sort of heavily invested in the kind of bohemian music. And with every new generation, they were going to lose it, because there is going to be, you know, a French oboe player and an English horn player, and so on and so on, and there will be fantastic musicians who will bring something international to that sound. At one point, it will be diluted. So then you have to kind of have a very specific chief conductor who says, you know, we are going to really work on this repertoire. But in today's world, the repertoire is so varied that it's very hard to achieve or sustain that type of attitude. Today, I'm afraid, we are close to this sort of one-size-fits-all mentality where everything sounds good, but nothing is particularly idiomatic anymore to a specific composer.
Do you think the recording industry has contributed to that a lot, to sort of...
I think it's just the world. The world has become so small in a way. You can get from one place to another. If you have, when we have auditions in Tonhalle, we have 300 people from literally all over the world, from Asia to Japan to which is Asia, and Brazil and United States and Russia and Czech, and so really it's not the recording industry so much, it's more the fact that it's a global world.
It might sound like an odd question, but does a conductor have their own kind of sound
as
well?
Yes, conductors do. Absolutely, conductors. This is one of the big misunderstandings that the orchestra plays, and the conductor sort of just looks good. The conductor is very much involved in the sound, and a good conductor. There are a lot of people who beat time, and then the orchestra sort of takes and does their best performance. If you have a very good conductor, then the sound changes immediately. In fact, when I teach conducting, and a lot of my students who are beginners, and even then, a person goes in front of the orchestra, gets there 15 minutes every day for the lesson, and you can see how the sound changes. It has something to do with the reaction to the gesture, the way people breathe. There is a certain warmth in some people, there is a certain dryness in other people, there is an intellectual kind of a Boulesian sort of dryness that immediately, kills the sound, or you have somebody with a little less obvious, less information in their hand, but somehow more warmth. It immediately changes.
What are some of the things that you're saying to your students then when they are standing in front of an orchestra for the first time?
Stop beating time. We always think that conductor's job is to beat time. It's not. It's not. Don't cue, don't beat time. Do not micromanage or be a traffic police. Your job is something entirely different. Your job is to go from this point to this point in a piece and create a performance, the arch, and orchestras have to, take a lot of responsibility in figuring out the rest. Now, in the rehearsals, of course, you help, and you teach the orchestra what to do, but in the performances, you are not the police, like North Korean police traffic. You've seen this sort of. That's very often what you see now. And less is more. My motto: less is more.
So, do you actually explain the context of the work also to the orchestra? Let's say with a younger orchestra, so that they actually understand.
Absolutely, you have to explain the inner world of this, especially with a younger orchestra. Now, with a great orchestra, let's say Concertgebouw or Berlin, they are so great that the inner understanding and a tradition is so wonderful that it is not. You don't, of course, go to that detail of explanation, but there are still insights that you know and they don't, and there are still certain things that might illuminate a certain point if it's said in the right moment, in the right way. Because for an orchestra, even if it's the greatest orchestra in the world, every week's a different repertoire, and they need to be sort of on top of unbelievable amount of repertoire and play it incredibly well. A little insight into the inner world, a quote from a Mahler's letter, or a little hint of a folk melody or something, can change the whole piece.
How much of this have you learnt from your father?
Everything.
All of it?
I have learned everything from my father. It is only the reason I am a conductor is because of him. And I would think that I have gotten some little things out of my other teachers, and they were very important. How to analyze, how to, some practical things and a lot of theoretical things. But what music is all about and how the inner world and working of music happens, comes all from my father.
My father's a conductor as well, but
I know.
I am not a conductor. I'm just fascinated by your family. There's so many conductors. I mean, was it sort of a natural decision, or it was something that was...
It's a defective gene.
It's a defective... Yes, but did you know you wanted to be a conductor from a very young age? Always.
I never wanted to be anything else. I remember studying. I was a percussionist in piano and all this, even violin and in the beginning. And I never wanted to be a percussionist or a violinist or a pianist. I knew that I have to do this because conductors should play something, but I was always conducting.
Because why?
Because of him, because of my father. I just thought he was having so much fun, and we are very close to this day. We are very close. So he's. I wanted to be like him, and do what he does. And his enthusiasm about music and about all the details and things were so sort of infectious that it was somehow like a game always.
So you never thought it might be sort of a weight for you, because to be a conductor after having a father who's a great conductor, I mean, it's...
Yes, at some point I never thought of it, because he never made us feel like that. We didn't have that Kleiber problem, which I'm lucky.
Yeah.
How would you describe that childhood home? Some of the sort of conversations you were having about music or beyond?
Well, we never. I mean, if people are talking about a dinner conversation or we never had a discussion about some mundane things. I mean, I remember discussing during the dinner about like, what did you think about, like, do you like the way the Furtwängler goes into the second theme here in the second Brahms, or you prefer the Toscanini is more straightforward? I mean, we were kids, but that we knew all of it because he would stand next to my father when he was listening and looking at the score, and he said, listen. Yeah, did you see this? Did you hear the second double? See that? Oh, did you hear it? Didn't hear it? Here you heard it. See, so we. It was a game, and so we. My sister was on one side, I was on the other side, standing, and so he had a score, and he said, "Okay, where are we now?" Okay, here. Which instrument's playing? Here. Where is it? So a lot of these things we never learned. I never learned what the order of the instruments is in the score. I remember going to the music school first exam. And my sister and I were sitting there, and many other people, all the kids. And one of the questions was, what is the order of? And we just wrote it down because we never studied it, but we saw it since our birth. And everybody else was in the blank. It's like, well, how am I supposed to know what's in the score? It's pretty easy. So the flutes, oboes, clarinets, fagotti. It was because we saw it. So it was never really an educational process that is academic. It was just a game.
After you.
Sorry? No, I'm wondering if you had your father, yourself, and your brother play the same piece, and people would not know who is playing what. Would you actually? What would be the difference? I know it's a very.
I think it would be different. I think it would be different because generations are different, and also the view is different. I am very involved in a historically informed performance practice, which is not quite a thing for a generation of conductors of my father's age, and I also have done a lot of work with the Kammerphilharmonie in Bremen. So we have an entirely different view of how the historically informed music is, and also personality difference. He's a very expansive, old world, wonderfully impulsive person. I'm a bit more pragmatic, I suppose. I mean, in Paris, the press always called me an iron fist in a velvet glove.
Oh.
I am not sure that I like that very much, but this is how they saw me, and I personally don't really see myself like this. But I don't know. I think that personalities are different, and therefore interpretations are.
Yeah.
How much of this can be learnt and sort of studied? It's interesting you speak about the sort of the academic study versus the instinct.
I think that the conducting, it's quite interesting because I think that you cannot learn the talent for conducting. Whatever that is, it's either you have it or you don't. But then once you have the talent, then there's a lot of studying that needs to be done and a lot of teaching, and you have to learn a lot. But the initial ability to kind of have some sort of a talent for conducting, I think that's something that is given. It's exactly like in violin. It's like voice. You can teach a person to play really good violin really well, but if it's not a born violinist, it will never really become a big violinist. So it's a little bit similar with all the other dancers. The same thing.
Well, good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
coming.
much for joining us.